Day 14. You've had two hard days. I'm Dr. Rivka Edery, author of Spatial, and we're back together again today for day 14. So, why have you had two hard days? On day 12, I asked you to attack the thing you most wanted to be true. On day 13, something of yours died, and I asked you to write it down without flinching and then go to bed. Today is different. Nothing new is taught. There is no new signal, no new rule, no new discipline. Today, you're going to watch the whole machine turn over at once. I'm going to walk you through a single complete session from the moment I sit down to the moment I close the field. Every step in order. The somatic filter, the touch log, the map, the freeze, the geometry sentence, the reading sequence, cluster isolate void, the disconfirmation line, the close. I will narrate what I'm doing and, more importantly, what I'm thinking, including the places where I'm tempted to cheat, because those are the places worth seeing. The layout I'm going to work is a satellite. I've chosen it deliberately. It is the pattern that most rewards the discipline you've been building, and it contains the single most common misreading in the entire method, one that you would almost certainly make on your own, and that I want you to see me not make. Do not run your own session while you watch this. Watch it first, then go to your table. Let me set the scene precisely. What do I bring to this table? Nothing, no question, no situation I'm hoping to resolve. It's day 14, and questions are not permitted at the table yet. That is a phase 3 matter, and we are not there. I sit down to record, not to ask. I want you to notice how much that simplifies what follows, because I've not asked anything. There is nothing for the layout to be about, and therefore nothing for me to bend it toward. That is not a limitation of phase 2. That is a protection, and you will feel its absence keenly when it is finally lifted. I settle. I do the somatic baseline. Hands on the table before anything is placed, recording what is present. Today, mild, unremarkable, a slight warmth in the right palm. Nothing dramatic. I write that down because, as we established on day 4, the unremarkable baseline is an entry and not an excused absence. Then the filter. I shuffle and I register. Most cards are nothing. Card after card produces the flat, neutral, zero sensation of the absence. And I keep shuffling and set them aside without analysis. This takes a while. It is boring. It is supposed to be. 5 cards register, 2 jolts, 3 weights. That is inside the layout range of 3 to 7, so I stop. 5 cards are placed face down in the positions my hands put them. And when I look at what has landed, this is the arrangement. 4 cards in a tight knot near the center, and 1 card alone far out in the upper right. Step 1 after the filter. I draw the map. And this is where the real work of the session happens, though it will not feel like it. 4 footprints clustered near the center. 1 footprint upper right, well outside the cluster's boundary. Now, the void between them. And here I slow down and do the thing I taught you on day 9, which is to measure it against the cards rather than against the table. The gap is roughly 3 card widths across. And I notice something that will matter enormously later. That gap is wider than the entire cluster is across. That is a proportion, and I have it in hand before I know what a single card is. Edge note. The isolated card sits near the upper boundary, but not against it. Near, not against. I write that distinction down because on day 3, I learned that a card pressed to an edge is at a limit. And this one is approaching a limit without having reached it. Those are different facts. And then I stop drawing. The map is frozen. Whatever is on this page now is the geometry of record. I do not get to improve it. Let me tell you what I'm feeling at this exact moment, because it is instructive. I'm feeling impatient. I want to turn the cards over. The interesting part, the part with meaning in it, is sitting face down in front of me, and I'm doing careful measurement of empty space. That impatience is the entire reason the map freeze exists. It is a rule built to survive a person who is exactly as impatient as I am right now. Step 2, the geometry sentence, written before the flip and containing no card names. Here it is, and I'm going to read it as I wrote it. A tight cluster of 4 cards near the center, with one card isolated in the upper right, well outside the cluster's boundary. The void between them is roughly 3 card widths wider than the cluster itself. The isolate sits near the upper edge, but not against it. And then I name the pattern type, now that the geometry is drawn, satellite. Look at what that sentence contains. Distance, from the center, from each other, from the edge. Cluster, its zone, its tightness, its membership. Void, its location, its proportion, its form. All 3 signals and the pattern name. Now look at what it does not contain. Not one card, not one meaning, nothing that could not be verified by a stranger looking at the table from across the room. That is the sentence I will still be able to trust in 3 weeks. Every other thing I say tonight will be interpretation, and interpretation decays. This does not. I want to flag one word for you: isolated. I chose it carefully, and I want to defend the choice, because a different word would have quietly begun the reading before the reading started. I didn't write abandoned. I didn't write excluded, or left out, or rejected. Those all describe the same geometry, and every one of them smuggles in a verdict. They tell you how to feel about the card before you have seen it. Isolated is structural. It says only, far from the others, alone. The vocabulary of a geometry sentence must be as flat as a geometry. If your structural words carry feeling, your reading has already started and you were not present when it did. Stop. Before I turn anything over, this is the moment I promised you. The single most common misreading in the method, and it is about to be available to me. The isolated card is the most striking thing on that table. It is alone. It is dramatic. It has a kind of gravity that the 4 huddled cards in the middle simply do not have. And every instinct in me says, turn that one first. That is the interesting one. That is the one with the story in it. Do not touch it. It is read 4th. The reading sequence is not a suggestion, and it is not a matter of taste. Cluster, then isolate, then void. The dominant zone is the center, by card count and by somatic weight, and the center gets read first. And here is why, and it is not arbitrary. The book is precise about this. The satellite's meaning only becomes legible once the center has been established. An isolated card is always a commentary on the cluster. It is not a separate thread with its own independent story. It says something about what the main group is avoiding or missing or unable to see. That is what an isolate is for, which means if you turn the satellite first, you have nothing for it to comment on. You will read it as a standalone statement, as the message of the session, and you will build the entire reading around it. And you will be wrong. And you will not find out that you were wrong, because a satellite read first will happily supply a complete and satisfying meaning. It just will not be the right one. You will have read the footnote as the headline. So I leave it face down. It sits there, being interesting for another 3 minutes. That is the discipline. Step 3. I turn the 4 center cards over together all at once, and I read them as a single object before I look at any one of them individually. That is the day 6 discipline, and you will feel the pull against it. My eye immediately finds the most dramatic of all 4 and wants to start there. I do not let it. I take in the group. What does the group say as a whole? In this constructed example, the center reads as a fully internal situation, something the person already has complete information about and is actively engaging with. There is nothing new in this cluster. It is not telling me about a hidden factor or an approaching event. It is all material that is already being handled, turned over, worked on, known. That is my cluster narrative, and I write it in the field on page 3. And only now do I look at the individual 4 cards. They elaborate on that reading. They do not overturn it. Each one adds texture to a picture whose shape I already had. Notice what the order brought me. Because I read the group first, the individual cards arrived as detail within an established structure. Had I read them one at a time, the loudest of the 4 would have set the frame, and the other 3 would have been recruited into supporting it, and I would have finished with the reading of one card echoed 3 times that I would have mistaken for a reading of 4. The group first, every time, even when, especially when, one member of the group is shouting.